Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Let me see. Okay, yep, our recording started. Thank you, Jonathan. Welcome to today's undeniable session. We are talking about your resume not being an obituary. I mean, maybe it is an obituary right now, but we're going to work on moving beyond what can happen to good people with a bad resume. And this is based on years of study, years of work with people. We see these things over and over again. And we are here to stop you from having a bad resume. That is really one of the things that we want to make sure happens today as we come away. We are recording the session. It will be available on our YouTube later. And everyone who's here is anonymous. So if you have questions as we go, you can please enter them into the conversation in the chat, and we will keep your name anonymous, of course, as we go forward here. I'm going to open with a question for everyone who's in the meeting here today. My first question is, when did you last update your resume? When did you last update your resume? So we've got a couple people chiming in here. Oh, we actually have a variety. So some people have done it in the last month. Some people have done it this year. And for some people, it's been over a year since they've done it. So we've got quite a number of people that have it's kind of like half and half, updated and not updated if it's not been updated in the last year. All right, for anyone out there who's not updated it in the last year, today's your chance. Please take 5 minutes and take care of that today. Take a look at some things that you've accomplished that you can bring in. If you haven't looked at it in over a year, you're not behind. You're doing the work, right? Like, and that's kind of the whole problem. We're going to get into it because you're too busy doing the work rather than taking care of yourself. So I've got another question here for everyone. Be honest, your resume right now is closest to, is it an argument for your next role? Is it a record of what you've done? Does it feel like a little bit of everything all at once? Is it feel like an obituary? So when you look at your resume right now, how does it feel for you? How do you think it is showing up in the world? Is it a record? Is it a sharp argument? We are getting pretty much, okay. We've got one person on the call who feels like they have a really sharp argument for their next role. But most people on here are talking about a little bit of everything all at once. And one person feels like it's a good record of what they've done. So that's interesting to see here. The reason why that's important for us to know is that in this hour, we're going to be doing this work. Okay. And so here's the thing to notice. If you feel like there's a solid record of your work that's on your resume, that may feel like the safe, responsible answer, but that's your obituary talking. Okay. And by the end of this, you're going to want to be able to be able to talk about your resume being a sharp argument for your next role. Okay. That's what we're going to want to get you toward, and we'll walk through the 4 different ways that shows up. And then I've got one more question for the group here. Let's see. Which of these might appear on your resume right now? And just this is again anonymous. Do these words appear on your resume right now? And if they don't, you don't have to answer. I just realized, Jonathan, we forgot to put in none. So if you're none, just don't answer this question. But we see that a lot of people who do this work with us and who come to us have resumes that really underrepresent them. And we do have a lot of people chiming in here to say that they've got a lot of responsible for and supported out in their documents, and that's okay. That is kind of what we've been told to say. But let's keep that in your back pocket. When we get to our stories here, we're going to come back to this poll and I'm going to hand you the fix for every single one of those words. We're going to fix responsible for. We're going to fix the word supported in your resume. Okay, so let's talk about why your resume may read like an obituary. Okay, so I'm gonna pull back up my sharing my screen with you all. One moment, please. Okay, so here's a pattern that we see a lot is the obituary resume. And I'm just going to read this for a moment here. She served faithfully for 22 years. She was responsible for the coordination of many meetings and was well liked by all who reported to her. She helped, she supported, she assisted cross functional teams across a distinguished and varied career. She wore many hats. She was a team player. She consistently went above and beyond. She's survived by 3 direct reports, a color coded inbox, and a SharePoint folder no one has ever been able to locate since her departure. In lieu of flowers, the family asks that you please stop writing your resume like this. Okay. This is a joke, but only barely because it's the exact register that most people's resumes are written in. Okay. They are a chronology of the past, of history. They're not about where they are moving. Okay. They're typically a warm, very complete, perfectly nice resume, very deeply humble account of everything that you've done, but it's addressed to the wrong audience. It's addressed to the people that already knew you. It's not addressed to the future and the person in the future reading this. Okay. And so, what happened when we were just looking at the poll questions that we put up there, we saw the precise language that the obituary is built for: responsible, helped, supported. Those are eulogy words. Those are not the words of a leader who is moving forward into their next role. All right. So a resume is written in past tense. A resume that's written in the past tense for an audience that already misses you is an obituary. Okay. We want you to be able to talk about the work in your past. So there is past tense in this, but we're positioning it to the future. We're reverse engineering it to the future. And this, we have to be talking about your credibility. We have to be talking about who you are, what you've done, what you've accomplished, not just the things that you were responsible for in the past. And by the way, that obituary I read is not a real person, so it's something made up. That no one was harmed in the making of that obituary that I read. Okay, so let's pause here a moment. The reader isn't here to mourn your past. She's there to decide whether to fund the next chapter of your future. So when your resume is a loving, complete chronological record of everything you've done, it's aimed backwards. Okay. We want to move forward. We want to help you do write the things down that are really going to help the future person see your capabilities. And we see this over and over again. All right. That we are not framing ourselves in the right way. And we've got 4 examples of how this works and what we've seen over 7 years of working with clients in this space. This is a Q&A session, so if you've got any questions as we go, you can drop your questions in the chat, all right? So Jonathan is there, Cecilia is there. We're here to take your questions. So whenever you get a question, just drop it in the chat and we will come up to it when we get a moment. So I want to tell you about the first person that we see that comes through our doors quite a bit. She's like the book Great Expectations, the heroine of that book, Miss Havisham. And so if you haven't read that book, that's okay. I studied literature in college, and so I know these characters. But imagine this. Imagine a person frozen in the past. Okay, we see this a lot with people who are really proud of their past accomplishments that are no longer really showing what they're capable of in the future. They're the humble brags from 10 years ago, right? The information on the resume is misplaced in that it's talking about your past role first. So if you open with your name, your contact information, you might have a brief summary. If it goes right into your role after that, you're missing an opportunity. You're moving right into the past. And so something that we do there is we make sure that there's space for your top accomplishments that really matter in your career. When we get into the past, we're going to see that people talk about themselves like a job description. Okay, this person was an account manager responsible for channel partnerships and client relationships across the division. Great. All right. That might be their opening paragraph about themselves. We see a lot of opening paragraphs about ourselves that are written sort of like passionate, dedicated leader, results driven marketing manager, these types of terms that really don't tell us anything except what you were responsible for. If you look at the after, we're telling a story that we want people to understand about the scale and scope, the context of our roles. Okay. So the after example here looks at somebody who actually has a personality and is talking about the scale and scope of their work. And it's someone who is able to share a little bit of their personality that will differentiate them in the future. So if you have a resume that's like Miss Haversham's, where you're going right into past, you're going right into your history, you're skipping over an opportunity to talk about yourself and to talk about the things you're great at for the future. I'm going to pause here a moment because I want to make sure that this is clear. If you see on the bottom, we've got the move here. And on the bottom of the slide, what I want you to take home is you need to write for the job you want, not the job you had. Okay. So a lot of people, when they're writing backwards, they're writing a chronology. They're writing about what they wanted. Excuse me, what they had, not what they are aiming for in the future. And so if your resume is a relic frozen in the past, you're not going to be in a competitive position. You're going to be you're probably someone who has a resume full of keywords because that's what the AI told you to do, but it's actually holding you back from talking about the job you want in the future. And so this is a challenge we see with a lot of really great people who want to do good work. All right. So if you look at that slide, you can see that we've got someone who's leading with the language of where she's going, and she's putting her strongest, most specific proof right at the front. Okay. So we get proof right in the first line of their about section at the top of their resume before we have to move into the chronology in the past. So again, remember, design for your resume for the role you want in the future, not the job you had in the past. Okay. So that's really important. All right. I'm going to pause sharing for a moment and want to move into another question for you all. When you think about your resume, do you feel mostly confident that it's ready? Are you overwhelmed and don't know where to start? Do you feel avoidant and you keep not doing it? Or are you frozen, like waiting in that wedding dress for someone to show up and whisk you away? Who are you with your resume right now? All right, we're getting some great answers coming in. And as they're coming in here, the reason we ask these kinds of questions is because I want you to know you're not alone. Like if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling avoidant, if you feel frozen, you are not alone in this. So let me share the results here so you can see. You can see that we've got a couple people in the room who feel pretty confident about their materials. And I'm really very happy for you. And probably you could be helping answer some of the questions here on the webinar today. But most people are feeling either overwhelmed, avoidant, or frozen. And those, which is, what do we look at that? 80 percent about of the people here are feeling pretty frozen. So if that's you, I want you to know you're not alone in this feeling. And sometimes what can happen is good women, good people, we get stuck on listening to advice that's out there in the world. And that advice isn't really geared toward more experienced professionals. It's typically advice that's really good and helpful for people who are younger in their career and in individual contributor positions. If you're in a leadership position where you're leading teams, leading big initiatives, where maybe you have that influence without authority, but you're at that higher level, you might have a budget, you might have a P&L, you might have those kinds of things. The advice that's out there is very distracting and it's not for you. And so it's not your fault that it's hard to understand how to write your resume, how to get out there and apply. And that's what we're going to talk through today. We just got a note that someone is on version 4 of their resume and they're not feeling confident about it. I hope that that person here today can come away from this understanding something that they can fix from, and move a little differently forward with, and not have to rely on AI-driven advice that's not appropriate for you in your stage of your career. So if you've been frozen in the past, again, the thing we want you to think about in order to break out from this is to write your resume for the job that you want, not the job that you had. So if that's you, that's the move you can make. Okay. The second kind of person that we see coming through our door is the Scheherazade. And Scheherazade, this is a great story in history if you haven't read 1001 Nights. It's it's a little controversial, but go ahead and give it a read. But what we're talking about when we look at Scheherazade version of the resume is we see someone who is telling one story after another. Of course, Scheherazade in this in the dialogue there and in the storyline of Scheherazade, she's telling these stories because she has to keep the man's attention. And it's the only thing keeping her alive until morning is telling 1001 stories. Okay. And if she keeps the man's attention until the morning, she'll be able to survive. So it's a controversial story, but I think it's an interesting one to bring up here at Get Her Hired, because what do we want? We want attention onto our resume. We want attention onto our story. And so sometimes we will try to tell everything all at once. And, of course, your life is not necessarily on the line like Scheherazade's was in the 1001 Nights. And if you know that story, I just think about that, right? Like, I want you to think about those of you out there who you've got a 20 plus year career, an 18 plus year career across 3 different fields. And your resume is giving equal space and equal air to all of those stories from your past. Sometimes what we hear is that the client thinks she's showing her range. She's showing the full capabilities, what she's competent in, by sharing all 3 of those stories in an equal manner. But what the reader is actually seeing is a document that can't decide what it's applying for. Okay. It's unfocused and it reads as a weakness, even when the truth is the opposite. Okay. A lot of you are her right now. I hate to tell you this, but the poll just told us this, right? That we're frozen. We're trying to tell everything all at once. We're in doubt. We avoid it. And so a lot of us can be in this particular spot with our resumes. And what I want to make sure that you take away from here today is not that you're just going to trim a couple of old jobs. And it's not that you're going to go into 3 pages on your resume or 4 pages on your resume. What you get to do is decide which single story your resume is telling. Okay. And then let everything on that page serve that one story. Your focus is not about, when we're focused on this, it's not like you're hiding things. It's choosing the argument that the reader needs to see so that the reader of your document is not left to do the sorting herself, because she's not. If we burden her with trying to decipher what it is you're interested in, she's going to move on to the next one. Okay. If she gets 10 resumes, 100 resumes, if she can't tell your strength in the area she's exactly looking for, this is where you need to focus and do a little bit of work in fixing your document. So let's go over, I think we have a couple of questions here that popped up. One second. All right. Let's see. So we've got someone wrote in and they shared that, yes, we used to have a resume example of Joan of Arc. Yes. Yes. So we do, I like to do, I call them dead resumes. I do, and they are a bit obituary-like, but they're about really cool women from the past. And yes, I did used to have an example of Joan of Arc. We'll have to get that out to that person. Um, and we'll get that back to you. Okay. So someone just asked a question. Might you have two different versions of your resume? Example one is strategy focused, while the other is operations focused. So that is a fantastic question. Thank you for asking that. And what we would say there is yes. So when we get on a call with a client, what we're trying to ascertain at first is, what is your one goal? Because we have found over and over again that executives are getting roles more through people they know or people who know people they know who have forwarded your information or made an introduction to you. So one of the things we get to do in that space is make it easy for other people to introduce us. And so clients we work with, typically we're asking them to commit to one direction for the next 12 weeks. Okay. So the person who asked this question, I would ask you, would you rather have a job that is focused on strategy and strategic operations, or would you rather have a job that is focused on day-to-day tactical operations? And because this tells us a little bit about which type of focus you would want to have. What I would do from there then is say, okay, let's say it's a strategic operations focused role. Let's say it's a VP level role. All right. So it's a VP, SVP of operations. You want to be involved in strategy and in determining how processes are put into place. You're collaborating with technology and with sales and with marketing, and you're figuring out how those things work together. You've got a team of people reporting to you. If that's your ideal, what I would do is determine what are the most common competencies that are needed for that next role. So if you're going to be the VP, SVP of operations, and you're going to have that strategic focus, write a really damn good resume that talks about how competent you are in those areas of the future role you want. The reason why we, again, would focus you down into one path for 12 weeks commitment is because it's hard for people to introduce us if we're giving them two different stories. So if you're telling them you want to lead strategy while also doing operations, or I really want to be an operations person in the tactical space, and I don't know who this person is who wrote this question, you're welcome to set up a resume review call with us and we can talk about that. But it's hard for people to introduce us when we're giving them two different stories or three different stories. And I know for a lot of people, it can feel like FOMO. You're afraid of missing out on that opportunity. But the lack of focus If you're telling 1,001 stories about yourself to other people, nobody knows how to introduce you. Nobody knows exactly who to forward your resume to. It's kind of like, okay, I just am making this up on the spot right now. I don't know if you have family members or partners or something, maybe your kids or whatever, and you're like, what do you want for dinner tonight? And they're like, I don't care. I just want food. And you want to kill them. You know what I mean? I mean, not literally, but like figuratively, you're like, wait, you can't decide if you want Mexican or Italian. You can't decide between pho and a lasagna, or you don't know if you want pizza or gyoza. What is it that you want? And so knowing that you get to help make those decisions more specifically, because not only is it annoying for you, right? It is annoying for other people when we don't decide what we want. And so make that decision, be the person that has a more clear document where you don't have two different things trying to be in one resume, and where you're focusing and telling people in your network you want one thing, not five things. Okay. Because that is where we can really start to lose things. That's where you become the Scheherazade, surviving until the morning. You may be surviving, but you're not really getting the opportunities that you could really be having. Okay. So our next person we want to talk about, the type archetype of person that we get, is the person who will not take freaking credit. Now, when we started this call, many of you put into the poll questions, yes, I have responsible for or supported on my resume, right? Mrs. Dalloway in the book named Mrs. Dalloway, she did not get any of the credit for what she did. Okay. Now, a lot of people will say to me, well, but my team did it, right? Like my team was there. We did it together. I didn't do it all. But you know what? You did do it. You were a part of it, and it wouldn't have gotten done if you weren't there. All right. So if your resume is the one, like let's say you bought the flowers, you held the entire party together, but all that's remembered is that the party simply happened, not that you were like the main character making the party happen. That's the problem. And so if your resume it looks like someone who held everything together, you're the connective tissue in everything, no one's going to remember that you're the connective tissue unless you tell them about the connective tissue that you've been. A lot of good women get stuck in this position. They are the Mrs. Dalloway of their careers. And they get told things like, well, we can't promote you right now because you're too valuable in your role right now. That is a flag to let you know that people don't know or appreciate what you really do, that you're undertaking credit for what you do, and that people don't understand the actual impact of your work. So while it might be true that you supported, you were responsible for, you helped do something, people won't actually consider that you're the person that made it all work if you don't tell them that you did. Okay, so if you look at the swap here on the slide, we've got responsible for cross-functional coordination and supporting key initiatives. I don't know how many times I've seen that on a resume, like a million times probably. And let me tell you what, it tells me nothing, nothing. Now, I love a glass of water, but you know what? I love a glass of water more if it's got fuzzy water bubbles in it. I like a glass of water, but I like a glass of water more if it's full of caffeine and coffee. Okay. So, yes, we can have this responsible for it, may be politely true. But if you look at the after, led a rollout that delivered several million in organic growth in under a month. That was actually a story, okay, that we were able to pull. These are actual stories that I've anonymized. All right. This is an actual client before and an actual client after. And when we pulled out the receipts from what she really did, this is what we came up with. We were able to quantify it. We were able to create that before and after. Okay, so not only did she throw the party, but she had the receipts to prove it. And she also told everyone about all the effort she put into creating that party. All right. So if your resume reads like Mrs. Dalloway's, this is someplace where you get to take credit for things. And it's let me tell you this. Okay, we're feminists here. And if you don't like feminists, you're probably you wound up on the wrong webinar. You might want to click away now. But let me tell you this, okay? There are plenty of mediocre men out there, plenty of them, taking credit for other people's work. I'll just name one example that I love to bring up. Elon Musk. Is he an engineer? No. Does he get credit for Tesla? Yes. Does he get credit for actual rocket science? Yes. Does he take credit for it all the time? He doesn't know how not to take credit for it. Now, I'm not telling you to act like a mediocre man, all right, and just take credit for things where it's not due, like where you actually didn't have a part in it. But if you had a part in this big project, maybe you weren't the leader of it, maybe you contributed to it. Talk about what was that contribution. Maybe you didn't lead the whole rollout. Maybe you led the analysis that made the rollout possible. Okay. But credit, take credit for what you contributed and what you did. All right. We just so often underplay what we do. And so again, it winds up as a very polite, very nice resume, but it doesn't actually say anything about what you actually achieved. And this is critical. It happens to so many good women. All right. The next example that we get a lot is the Elizabeth Bennet resume. So if you haven't read Pride and Prejudice, let's just say this. Elizabeth Bennet she's brilliant, and she's really misjudged by the most important person in the book during her first impression, right? The person made the first impression about her off of incomplete information. They made that decision in about 30 seconds. So is the person screening your resume. Okay. If you can't get their attention and tell them how you want them to understand you in about 30 seconds, they're going to move on. Okay. The person doing this reading is not a colleague who knows exactly what you're capable of. She's a stranger with the budget and the authority and half a minute, and she's going to decide fast whether she's going to bring you in for that interview or not. Okay. So what we've got to do is make it easy for this person to understand, again, the scale and scope of what you've done. We can't make assumptions that they're going to understand acronyms. We can't make assumptions that they're going to understand what exactly it is that you want them to know about you unless they tell you. Okay. You tell them. You don't want to be the Elizabeth Bennet. Okay. So if you see this before example, let a global org responsible for 6 months go to market, 6+ go to market. Okay. Customer intelligence, learning, and community. So we've seen this on a resume. Okay. Good person wants to quantify something, but they've done it in a way that makes it difficult to understand the context and the scale and the scope. So if you look at the after, let a global organization spanning 6+ teams across go-to-market, customer intelligence, learning, and community. So you want to write for that stranger that doesn't know you, not the colleague. Okay. Now there's exceptions on this. We work with people who are in particular fields of science and technology where you do need to use some of your expertise terminology in your document, or the recruiter is going to think that you're not as advanced as you are. So there are exceptions to this in ways where we do want to use the expert terminology, especially in the technical and medical fields, financial fields. But in general, what we want you to do is make sure that that first impression is clear and that you are defining that, not that we're waiting for someone to interpret your first impression. Okay. So, this is a really important piece for us, writing for the stranger, not the colleague. Okay, so let's talk about this. We need to figure out how do we how do we change this up? Whoops, let me go back to my slide here. Okay. How do we make this work different for us? So what are we going to do? So if nothing else, screenshot this page, okay? This is important, all right? I want you to look at these four things that we are going to do to correct your obituary of a resume, okay? So the Miss Havisham, we're going to write from the future, okay? We reverse engineer from the competencies of the job you want. We don't just talk about a polite chronology of your past. Number two, you get to decide on the single story that your resume tells, not 1,001. Okay. The stakes aren't as high as they were for Scheherazade, thank God. At least I hope they're not, but definitely decide on a story. Number three, you want to swap your duties for receipts. Okay. So you want to actually show people what you accomplished, not just tell them you accomplished it. And then number four, we want you to write for that stranger so that that first impression is they can really understand it without the context of knowing anything else about you. So if you do nothing else, screenshot this page. Okay, this is your resurrection page for your obituary of a resume. Pull it up tonight. I want you to look at that top third of your resume. So typically, on a piece of paper, you have to scroll after a certain point. Before someone has to scroll on their resume, are these four things clear? All right. Read it and see what you might need to refocus for yourself on your resume tonight. These are the moves that are really going to make a difference for you, that are going to get your resume to open the door. All right. This is not about getting a job offer. The resume job is to get you in the door for an interview, and then you get to show up for the interview. But if you can't even get in the door, no one's, you got to make it easy for someone to say, yes, let's bring this person in. And if the top third of your resume does these three things clearly, you're going to be able to have the rest of your resume just stand as validation and backup, right? So if you answered the question we asked earlier today in the poll, and you said you felt like your resume was an obituary, this is your resurrection plan. Okay. So what we want to do now is open the conversation here to your questions. This is for you. We want to know what's keeping you up at night with your resume. Everything here is anonymous, so you can drop your questions right into the Q&A. You can use the chat function. You can, I believe, upload your resume right now if you want me to take a look at it. I still won't say your name, but if you have specific questions, we want to look at it. Do you feel like your resume is frozen in history? Do you feel like you're trying to tell too many stories? Are you not sure if you're taking the right amount of credit or not? Are you unclear what the first impression is from your resume? We want to answer your questions. And this is the benefit you get of showing up live. While this will be replayed for others, we will answer your questions right now if you've got them. So I'm going to keep our chat room open here on the side. And again, it's all anonymous, and you can ask all your questions that you want into the chat here. We're gonna be able to answer them for you. All right. So let's try this. I'm not seeing any questions here yet. I think something that really is the easiest catch. So if I go back a slide here, the easiest catch in here, I think these are all not that complicated in and of themselves, but combined, it will take you some work. And this is the kind of work that we do, and this will take a few hours to do. I would say let's just start from writing from the next roll backward. This is the thing that we see is often the most underutilized skill for people writing a resume. And again, here's how we do it. If you know you want a VP of strategy role in a small manufacturing company, figure out what are the top competencies needed for that role and then talk in your resume about how you've already accomplished, how you already are capable of those competencies, right? So that's that reverse engineering your resume from the future. And I think a lot of people really miss that opportunity because what AI tells us so frequently is that we need to have these keywords. We need to match a certain number percentage of keywords. That is a fool's game. Not that you're a fool, but the system has made it so that we've got the FOMO and we've got the fear, and we feel like um, we have to hit everything that the AI is telling us, or we're not going to get seen. So the actual problem there is using AI as the only way to apply. We have a methodology here at Get Her Hired. You're hitting apply on a job is just step one. Okay. You're not done applying when you hit apply on step one, right? There's other ways because you need to get your resume in front of a human being, not in front of a robot. The danger in it's not danger, it's just waste of time and energy, okay, of writing for the algorithm is we don't know the sensitivity of the algorithm on the back end. So let's say there's these services out there like Teal or Resume Write or these other services that will tell you what percentage of keywords you have that match. Cool, 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 cool. Well, guess what's happening? 100 other people are also using Teal to try to modify their resume for that job. And all of the sudden, all of the resumes sound like the same person. And it's a bunch of keywords that match the job description, but they actually have nothing to do with what you're capable of and what you do. So I want you all today for your next thing you're applying for. Again, look at the top competencies of the role you want and write about it from there. Then trust that there's more than the algorithm standing between you and an opportunity for an interview. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Do I have, let me see if I have one here. I don't. Okay, I'm just going to go say it. I want you to have big clipboard energy. Big clipboard energy, what that means to us is that you are going to go to all of the ends of the earth to check off everything to make sure that you can get through to a human being at the organization. If you had big clipboard energy for getting your kid in the last spot at summer camp, if you have big clipboard energy for getting your niece or nephew their favorite thing for Christmas and you're going to order it ahead right now, if you've got big clipboard energy for your doggy or your cat that you're going to put into their favorite pet suite while you're on vacation and you want to make sure that they get the best pet suite available, use that kind of clipboard energy on yourself. Okay. So do not let AI homogenize you. Do not let AI hold you back from getting an interview because you've been so focused on the wrong metric, which is the keyword match that AI is telling us that we need to do. It doesn't work for people at your level. It doesn't work for people who are in senior positions with 15, 20 years of experience. That is not the game. That is not the metric. The metric I want you to play is the clipboard metric. Okay. That's the one. What are all the angles you're taking to make sure that you get in front of a human being with your resume? Okay, so it looks like we've got a couple of questions that have come into the Q&A. And it looks like we have someone shared with us kind of the opening. Maybe this is the opening for their resume. All right. So they shared design, facilitate, and evaluate multi-level accounting programs for 100 plus organizations across corporate, nonprofit, government, and higher education. So this person, what they're telling us is that they design accounting programs, okay? And they're telling us that they facilitate this and evaluate this for organizations just across the spectrum. I think this is a strong line. Okay. I'm going to put this line, it's anonymous. So I'm just going to put this in here. If this were something that were in a bullet, that was in a bullet, if this is something that was in a key achievement area, I think this is pretty strong. Um, but I think you could do even better by saying, if I said this to you, and this is no dig on you as a human being, but if I said to you, so what? So what? Who cares? I want you to take that and make me care. Okay, that's going to make this even stronger. So this is an okay bullet, but I think there's more juice that we can squeeze out of this orange here. All right. So for example, if you look at what I put in the chat there, this is what the person shared. Uh, who cares if you designed, facilitated, and evaluated this for 100 organizations? Tell me the before and after. Tell me one specific one that you're really proud of. Tell me why I should care that you did this for corporate, nonprofit, government, and higher education. There's probably 10 stories that are cooler and more fun to read about and understand about how you accomplished that, the skill and strength it took you to do that, that's behind this overarching statement. So you might say, for example, um, design, let's say, evaluated or analyzed an accounting program for a Fortune 500 company, then designed a new three-step process that eliminated 5 days worth of delay, resulting in the executive team being able to make decisions in 72 hours or less. Something like that, right? Like this is just one example. I just pulled this out of the top of my head, but that's an example of how that becomes even cooler and more realistic to me as a stranger reading your document than that you were responsible for designing, facilitating, and evaluating this. Okay. We had another question come in. Someone said that they've got strengths and they can do a lot of things. Okay, so we've got the capability queen here. She's capable of a lot of things. And again, this is not personal. I'm just reading what I see. Okay, so they said one of my strengths is that I can do a lot of things. We hear this. We hear this a lot. And let me just say, sister, of course you can do a lot of things. You're a woman. Women, we know how to multitask and do lots of kinds of things because it's a good survival mechanism for us, right? Like, yes, of course you can. However, we don't want you getting stuck in that. So when I look, I'm going to look further at your comment here that you sent over to us. And thank you. And anyone else who has questions, please bring them in here. So this person can scale things. She can translate complex technology. She can train people. She can engineer change processes. She can engineer change for people. She's a really good project manager. She's really good at project delivery. She's good at marketing. So she says she's a Swiss Army knife. And then the question is, do I say that? I think what you're describing, this person who brought this up, is the Mrs. Dalloway. You're probably the person who supports, helps, manages a lot. You're probably the connective tissue and glue who's responsible for a lot of things. You're probably told that you can't be promoted because you're too valuable in the position you're in. You're probably someone who doesn't take credit for what you do or tell people about the effort it takes to get your work done. Should you tell someone that you're a Swiss Army knife? Let me tell you this. No. And here is the reason why. Behind, and I've known you for 3 seconds from reading this line that you sent over. So if you wanted to set up a conversation, we could go a little deeper on this. But from the 3 seconds I'm reading in the line that you sent me, There are skills and competencies behind this, and that's what I would focus on. So if you're telling me that you're great at scaling and change, you're great at communication, you can train people. So what I'm seeing there is someone who is a systems oriented thinker. You're someone who's able to build frameworks and influence other people. You're an excellent communicator, and that communication can come across with people, with marketing, with sales. You're someone who can look at something small and understand how to make it so that it's scalable. So you're a strategist. And I would talk about those skills rather than functions. So a function is marketing. A function is operations. A function is training and development. A function is facilitation. But what you have is far greater than that. And it's the competencies that are behind your capability of doing those things. So while you may function as a Swiss Army knife, right? You've got the scissors, you've got the nail clippers, you've got the little tweezers, right? But in general, what you are is someone who is capable of solving all those kinds of problems because you have engineered all of these things and your abilities in the past. And yes, I can pull it out and be a tweezer, or I can pull it out and be a knife. I can take my skill of strategic thinking and apply it to marketing. I can take my skill of strategic thinking and apply it to strategy. I can take my skill of communication and apply that to change management. I can take my skill of communication and apply that to translating complex technology things to other people. All right. So think about yourself rather than as a tool, think about yourself as a skill behind the tool. And I don't know if I'm explaining that well enough, but jump on a call and we can look at what that might mean for you a little bit differently. So I'm just looking over at the Q&A. Let's see if anyone else has got a question coming in here. All right. So I'm not seeing any other questions coming in at this time. So if you've got one, please bring it over into the conversation. We want to help you. We're on a mission to help people. We don't want to put more noise in the world. We're on a mission to help 10,000 women, thems, and cool men land their next boss roles. And we don't try to gatekeep any information. We pretty much give it away all for free if you're listening and paying attention to the things that we're putting out there in the world. And if you've got questions, setting up a resume review call with me is a really great idea. Following along on our newsletter that you can sign up for is another great way. Following us on LinkedIn is another great way to get the information you might want to have about how you're performing. So if you don't have any other questions, which I'm not seeing any, okay, we just had one come in. And the question is telling the story of the job you want instead of listing accomplishments. Okay. So here's the nuance. Thank you for asking this question. So I'm going to put the question out for everybody to see, and it's anonymous, so it should be okay. A couple examples of telling the story of the job I want rather than listing accomplishments. So I want you to imagine the top third of your resume. Okay, you've got your name, contact info, then you're going to have an about section. Then we want you to have a section that's called executive accomplishments, career highlights, something like that. And that's going to come before you get to your experience section down here. This is the chronology down here. So I want to have you separate those two things in your mind right now. So what's on the top half of page one is different from what's on page two on the bottom of page one. Okay. So in this top half, when you're thinking about the next role, if you, again, let's say you want to get a role as a senior director of channel partnerships, and you're in a pharmaceutical space or a medical device space, let's say. and you want to get a role as a senior director of channel partnerships. I want you to go use an AI tool like Chat, Gemini, Claude, pick your poison. Okay. I want you to ask it this question. What are the top 10 competencies that people need to have in the role of senior director, channel partnerships in a med device company, Fortune 500? The more specific you are in asking that question, the better results you'll get. So you'll probably get a list of competencies like strategic communication, uh, financial acumen. You'll probably get a competency like operational excellence. Okay, so these are competencies. Now, on your resume right now, you may not be talking about your financial acumen or your operational excellence. But what you're going to do is, because like those things probably aren't showing up in your chronology, but what you can do is put those in your opening paragraph and you can put them in your career highlights section. So, for example, used my skill of operational excellence to accomplish da 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 da. Um, it's kind of like, I want to say it's kind of like this. Well, no, what would be a better example? In my head, I sometimes get funny examples. All right. So here's just one. Show me you're a mom without telling me you're a mom. And we see someone with 20 bags on their shoulders, carrying a baby, trying to hold a toddler's hands. Okay. So, like, and you're in the Target parking lot, right? We know this person is a mom by looking at her. She doesn't have to tell us. So for this person who is asking that question, what I would say is show me in your document how you've used operational excellence, how you've used strategic communication, how you've used the skill of your financial acumen to do things and accomplish things. Because what you're doing there then is showing us that you can do it without having to say that you can do it. And that is what executives respect. It's like, cool, cool, cool. 100 other people can say they're great at financial acumen, but then they have no data. 100 other people can say, I'm really great at data analysis, and then their document has zero data analysis in it. 100 other people use AI to say, I'm really great at operational excellence, but then there aren't any proof points. So, yes, you want to have quantifiable results, but those quantifiable results are positioned toward the future's need to understand them. So, in your company in the past, they might have referred to it one way. But for the future, for that context in the outside world, remember, you're going to refer to it in a way that other people can understand it. That's the Elizabeth Bennett model that we were talking about. All right. So I think the team shared that we might have a couple questions in the Q&A box. Let me go over there. How do we just tell the story as you described and still get past the ATS and the pre-screen for many companies? I'll answer that really quickly. Do not rely on the ATS and the screening. You need to go beyond. You need to find 3 to 5 people at the organization and you need to reach out to them. And I will tell you God's honest truth. I posted a job once and got 500 resumes in the first, I don't know how many hours, but hours. Okay. The only people I replied to and looked at were the 20 who messaged me. Okay, 500 people applied. Some of them are probably freaking awesome, great fits. But I only looked at the 20 who reached out to me because it told me something about their character. So if you're really interested in that job, I don't care about the ATS. Go find the people at the company, start trying to get an in whatever way possible. And remember, big clipboard energy. I want you to bring that clipboard energy to that. Someone else shared the summary that they have on their resume. So let me just take a look at this. They shared that they're a content strategist with 10 years experience. blah, 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 agency and in-house. They're talking about their domain expertise right at the top. If this person whoever sent this in, I will just say that what we've got here is a lot of keywords that don't actually tell me a lot about how I could trust you to do the job. I would much rather hear about what kinds of problems you solve. I would rather hear about what kinds of groups you help and then what kinds of help you provide. I think it's a missed opportunity that you're using your opening paragraph to talk about your domain expertise because it's taking up a lot of space that could be talking about you. You could fold your domain expertise into the bullets in your experience section. Okay. They should be alive in a bullet. So, for example, used did X, Y, and Z to mitigate ransomware. All right. Um, ran a post quantum cryptography effort to do X, Y, and Z, resulting in A, B, and C. Okay, so you see how you can fold that into the bullets. It doesn't need to take up the top of the story there. So I think really what we're talking about there is the Scheherazade. You're trying to tell too much in that opening paragraph. And then you end your paragraph with a track record. Now, where you get into your track record, and that is a term I'm a little bit allergic to using the term track record, but I'll just tell you this, that that is the interesting piece of your story. And it's kind of buried. You've buried the lead. And so the person who sent this over, I think if you opened more with how not that you develop thought leadership, but tell us about your thought leadership. And so what? Who cares? What did your thought leadership make possible? What did your research make possible? All right. What did managing contractors and agency teams make possible? So I think those are the things that are much more interesting and more compelling story that I encourage you to think about as we go forward here. So I know there are a few more questions. If you're someone who wants to have more questions answered, please sign up for a one-on-one. We'd love to have you come in and we can talk all about your questions. And for all of you out there who want help with this, don't know what to do, you're overwhelmed, you're frozen, we've got our Hit Send program. It's a self-paced course. If you're on this webinar today, use the code OBIT and you're going to get 50% off of this. It's only going to be $125. If you do this Hit Send course, you're going to get all of the things that we tell our clients, all of the tools we use, the templates we use. You get all of that. And I'm assuming Jonathan is going to get that out in the chat. So if you would want to, yes, thank you, Jonathan, for putting that in the chat for the resume review call. And then to get the getherhired.com/hit send, that is where you're going to find the Hit Send course where you can use the coupon when you check out. So again, it's how to do all of the things we're talking about in this webinar today, $125. I promise you, it's going to be far more valuable than upping your tokens at Teal. Okay. So if you're using an AI tool to evaluate the ATS validity of your resume, please spend $125 over here. It's going to be much better spent, especially if you are at a more senior level, you've got a number of years behind you in your belt. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. We wish you great success. We are excited to see if this changes anything for you. So if it does, please let us know. We'd love to follow up with you and see how this might help you in your writing of your resume, of landing those interviews that you are so ready to get, that you are so deserved of getting. Take care, everyone, and have a great afternoon. We appreciate it. Bye-bye.